Okay, so we're going to do this activity today that is based on modification of something that Dr. John Demartini does, drdemartini.com if you want to go check out his stuff. But it is all aimed at trying to get towards what our real priorities are in life or what we really value. And I'm sure if you've heard of this kind of thing before, I'm a personal growth dork, so I've done about 1 million of these activities, but this one really stands out and is completely different to me because it's not just this like lofty high in the sky or pie in the sky, as they say, like idealistic, pull things out of thin air kind of question of what do you value, and you just like list a bunch of general things and everything's supposed to work out and make sense. I don't like it when things are just too idea based, and that's what that feels like to me. This is all about experience based and real things that you can ask yourself and check with and observe in your life and use as hard proof to support the things that you value or to cross-check what it is that you actually prioritize. And so there's just like so much more action in it and like real experience that it feels grounded to me. It just feels like it makes much more sense and it gets much more detailed because you have real questions to ask yourself. So here's how it goes. First step is to act like a scientist and observe all the things that you surround yourself with, all the things in your house, your car, your office, your room. What are the things that you surround yourself with? And for me, I could say like plants. I definitely have a lot of plants themselves. I have plant stuff like seeds and stuff, and I have plant books. So that could be one. And also I could say I surround myself with books, but if I'm being more specific, and that is what you want to do, you want to be the most specific possible. I would say, okay, what is it that I'm choosing to surround myself with in those books? It's quotes and poetry and inspiration and stuff that's like meaningful to me, powerful quotes. That's what's in those books. So that could be on my list. And you're making like a real list, writing it down, because things are always different when you get to see them in front of you on paper, instead of just like floating around in your head. So part 2 or step 2 is now you're going to write down all the different ways that you spend your time. Of course, we're going to be paying more attention or taking special note of how we spend the most of our time, like the things that we spend the most amount of time on. But in this part, we want to really look at all of it. I mean, all of it's going to give us information, all of it. Even the stuff that you spend a tiny amount of time on and you don't even want to spend any more on. Like, let's say food, for example. Let's say that you don't spend a lot of time on preparing or thinking about food, and you don't want to spend any more time. You want to spend even less time thinking about and preparing food. All right, cool. That gives us information. We already have this deepening thing happening with ourselves, because we kind of know that that's like the opposite of a priority to you. It's not really a high value at all. So we got something. So after you've like looked at all the different ways that you've spent your time and really mapped out all the different things that take up your time, now we're going to move into part 3, which is going to be how do you spend the most of your energy, or where do you spend the most of your energy? And let's be distinct. It's not your time, it's your energy. Okay. Let's define that a little bit. Where you put most of your energy is, where you bring the most of yourself forward, where you show up the most, where you maybe even feel like yourself the most, where you feel like you're really getting to be you, or do the things that you want to do. But it's definitely when you show up full you, full energy, and really put everything of you forward. that's where you're spending that energy. And of course, as you can imagine, that can be very different than how you spend your time. It might not be, but it also might be. You could spend all of your time at work, let's say, but where you really put your energy for it is in that 1 hour that you get home and are able to see your kids, or in that 1 hour that you're able to read that book. You feel, really like this is when I'm finally getting to do what I want to do, or when I'm finally getting to be myself, or that 1 hour where you do that physical activity that you love. That's like when you're really putting all of you forward. So that's how you spend your energy. So we're taking note of those, writing them down, and then we're moving on to the next section, and that is, what are your values? You're going to write down what your values are as you see them. As you see them now, and be detailed, be as detailed as possible. Don't just like list out general ones. And if you need a list, a cheat sheet to like jog your memory of what kind of values you could be picking here, look up the Center for Nonviolent Communication, or cnvc.org. They have a list of values, or you could just like Google basic human values and I'm sure you would get something. But it could be things like achievement, productivity, reliability, compassion, or relationships and connection, integrity, ingenuity, creativity. I mean, all these things. So it could be lots of different stuff. Dependability, and start writing down what you think your values are. And if you know which one is already in first place and what the priorities are right away, and that's just like something that comes to you, like, all right, these are my 5 values and this one is definitely first. Well, then fabulous. Go ahead and put the priorities down, or put them in order of priority. Fabulous. But if you don't quite know that yet, we can save that till later. It's fine. Then after we've done this, we're going to take a cross check. Look at all the things that you've now written down on paper and look. How does the way I spend my time match up with what I value? How does the way I spend my energy match up with what I value? Keep saying how. And how does how I spend my time match up with how I spend my energy? And how does what I value match up with what I surround myself with? And how does what I spend my time on match up with what I surround myself with? So all of it, like check them all and just see where they line up, how they line up, if they don't line up, because surely you'll find some of both. Like there may be places where it really does line up with your values and how you spend your time or what you surround yourself with. And that's great. It's an amazing form of reassurance, and it like really affirms what those values are for you. But there are sure to be plenty of other times or places or ways that it doesn't line up. And that is interesting information too. That means we can work it out. We've got opportunities here. And really, it can go one of two ways at first. When you find something that doesn't match up, it can go one of two ways. Either you can adjust the value or adjust the thing that doesn't match up, and it should go both. You should ask the question both ways. Okay. If you find something that's like, I'm not at all spending my time on the things that I value. I'm not at all. Well, are you sure? Ask yourself, are you sure that's really what you value then? And let's check and let's be detailed in our checks, because this happens often. People will say oh, I have to go to work. I don't value, it doesn't match my values. I'm at work, blah, blah, blah. But I have to, it's an I have to. Or my space, the things that I surround myself with, they don't reflect me personally, but it's an I have to. These are functional things that I just have to have in my house. Okay, cool. Well, in the case of the functional items, are you sure that you don't just value functionality or pragmatism, something like that? Or in the case of work, where you're spending a lot of time at work, and you're saying it doesn't match my values or whatever, okay, but are you sure those are your real values? Maybe your real value is something like achievement or comfort or security or even productivity. Maybe being at work all the time is really giving you a boost because you value the heck out of productivity or creativity. Maybe it's your outlet for creativity. And there's things that you could be cross-checking and asking yourself and seeing okay, oh man, that could really make a difference if I notice that my values are actually different. So now I'm not just trying to meet these values over here and feeling totally, dissatisfied. Instead, I realize what my real values are and like name them and realize how my work is actually fulfilling that. Now I don't have this like disconnect where I feel like constantly resentful because work isn't feeling satisfied or satisfactory to me, satisfying to me. It's feeling like, oh, I resent this thing because I don't get to really do what I value or what I want because it's work. Well, maybe the things that you value are within it because you are spending tons of time on it. So you might want to double check, or like say you think that it's in conflict with like freedom. I value freedom and work is in direct conflict with my freedom. It takes away my freedom. It infringes upon it. Okay. But actually maybe work is providing you with some freedom. So really continue with the details and the asking of the detailed questions. Maybe this freedom is in your work. You're getting yourself some freedom in other areas of your life. Freedom because you feel financially supported, or freedom because you can take these vacations and they're, paid for or whatever. But some form of freedom. Freedom because you feel really valued by someone in this world, and that like allows you a lot of freedom. And being valued is also a major value of yours, and you've got to like add that one in because you didn't really realize it. But it's only asking all these details and like tapping into all these roots that we arrive at these places. So that's one direction things can go, right? It can be like, I might need to really ask myself if those are my real values and make some adjustments to my values list and like make it more specific and understand that, the things that I'm spending my time on might actually fit with my values better than I thought. And then the other way it can go, which is probably the more commonly thought of way, is that if you look at your values and are like, no, I am sure I value connection, I value relationships, I value people so much more, and I don't get to do those things. I don't spend my time on it. I don't surround myself with it. I don't put my energy into it. Okay, well, there you go. Like now you know what the value is, and you can now shift that other side. You can spend some more time with your kids, or it can be more creative than that. You could put some pictures in your space of the people that you love and the relationships and the connections that you have. And that may make more of a difference than you think. It might really relieve something. And then you could take a look at like your energy. I'm always burnt out when I come home and I don't ever have any energy to give to the people that I love and the connections. Okay, well, you might want to reserve and be more conscientious about that. Reserve some of your energy so that you do have it to be able to really put forward and really know that like that is my goal. That's going to help me with my values. I'm going to really show up and put all of me forward when I get to those connection moments in my day. Or you might take on more team sort of assignments in your job in order to get some more connection and relationships in your job world. Or you may allot some time after work every day to call friends and do the connection thing, just so you can make some time for it in your world. But there's lots of different ways that can happen, and you just have to, just like make the adjustments and get detailed about it. Once again, like fish around, ask all the questions, and you'll find way more solutions, So, that is what I love so much about this activity, is that there's just like so much in it. It's all about how far you're willing to take it, and that's how much you'll be able to get out of it. So now that we've kind of like looked and we've got this like adjustment thing going on, either you've like, they're disconnected, you've adjusted one way or the other, now you're more clear on your values, we've cross-checked everything, and now you've got a different list of your values. It's a more refined list now that you've done the cross-checking. With this new list of values, now let's ask ourselves to prioritize them. Let's get serious about doing that. And I understand it can be kind of overwhelming to think of like, oh my God, I don't know, I value them all. That's why they're so important to me. Like, yes, absolutely. But really there's value in this, because when you realize which comes first, which one takes precedent over the other, you can better use your energy, but also you kind of realize like what cup has to be filled first, So if you're thinking like, okay, I value freedom and love, both. I love, freedom, love. There's like there's no difference. It's like you have to have them both. Maybe. But if we really get into this like detailed work of prioritizing them, then we would ask ourselves like, okay, do I need to have love happening in order to even feel free? Because love has to be present and I have to feel love and I have to be receptive to love and there has to be love in my life, or else I don't even feel free. A ton of freedom can be happening in the practical sense, but I don't even feel it or experience it as freedom unless love is there. Okay, well then we know love is number one. Love is the cup that needs to get filled first, and that's what you need to spend, that time on, is understanding that that's the number one. That's the thing that has to happen for all the others to trickle down from, or the other way, freedom. All right, well, I have to feel freedom in my life and in all these areas, a deep sense of personal freedom in order to even show love or to feel or receive love. There could be tons of love available for me in the room, but unless I have that deep sense of personal freedom, I'm just not going to pick up on it. It's going to be lost on me. I'm not going to be that loving person or be able to like express or exude love the way that I want to. And love is just like not going to be as easy. Okay, well then we know that the freedom is first, and that gives us a priority. It gives us a thing that we know has to be filled first. And this is the kind of stuff that can be really helpful because, let's say that you're doing your cross-checking and you're trying to line things up and you're realizing like, okay, well actually, I've got 7 of my values in my time every day, like in the bulk of what I spend my time on, in my work. 7 of my values are in my work and I spend the bulk of my time at work. How come I still feel so drained and dissatisfied and like resentful or something? Okay, well maybe it's because those 7 are awesome and you're thinking like 7 is better than 1, but the 1 that's left out is that number 1, super on top cup that like has to be filled first for everything to even count, to even like be able to be alive enough for those other things to be perceived. And so then there's your answer. You've got to put in that number 1 thing. And I also love this because it's like a way that you can work your values. Once you start realizing what they are, naming them, getting them in details and understanding the priorities and knowing which one needs to go in there first, then you can reverse engineer it and work those things into the things that you spend your time on, which is kind of what we talked about before. But it's like relieving to know that it's maybe not always that you just have to like rearrange your whole life and readjust your whole time. Well, you can. That's refreshing too. And that's also needed too. So I'm sure it'll be some of both. But you can also see these values or find ways to insert these values in the things that you're already doing. So let's say you're, at work most of the time. I'm using that example because it's like pretty common, people spend a lot of time on work. And creativity is your highest value. Are there ways for you to insert more creativity in your work? Or freedom is your highest value. Are there ways for you to insert more freedom? Can you ask to choose your next product? Yeah, I was going to say project, but it could be product, or would, can you do more creative things? Or, whatever. Could your secondary thing that you spend a lot of time on in your day have more creativity in it? So there's ways to reverse engineer it too, where you can insert them back in, or you can, like I said before, like find ways that they are met. Like look at your current job and remind yourself how creativity is already built into it, or the ways that your creativity does get met in there, or the ways that freedom is in your job. And then it kind of gives you like a new appreciation for it or lights it back up again when you realize, okay, some of my values are being met here, even though it feels like an I have to, or, even though I've resented it in the past. It just like reminds you. It's a great reaffirmation exercise to realign things back up and insert things where you need them, shuffle things where you can, and remind yourself where things already exist in your day that are meeting your values. Because like I said, it's encouraging. It's encouraging too. So I love this activity. I hope you do too. Again, get as detailed as you possibly can with it. It definitely deepens you with yourself and gets you really clear on like your values, your priorities. And that's like your life mission. That's like a big freaking deal.